everyone! In today's video, this is going to be the third video in my web automation series, except today's video isn't really web automation. It's web scraping, and I'll explain what web scraping is later in the video. So first of all, what are we going to do in today's video? First, I'll explain what web scraping is, and although web scraping and web automation are kind of similar, they have some differences, and I'll explain that later. And then I'll show you all the libraries and modules we're going to use in today's demo. And then I'll show you what kind of program we're going to be doing in today's video and the steps we can do to achieve them. And then finally, we'll get straight into the interactive demo, in which first I'll just show you all of the installations and modules we're going to need to use. And then we'll actually type out the program and the logic. And then we'll test it out by running the code in terminal. Alright, so first let me just introduce what web scraping is and the difference between web automation. So web scraping is extracting data from websites. This data can be table data, text data, images, anything. And this can be done manually, like a person can just go to a website and get the data. But when you refer to web scraping, it's mostly done by programs, and in this case, it's a Python program. So some people do web scraping for malicious uses, but it can be preventable. Like if you're setting up a website, there is a way that you can prevent people from getting the data from the website. So let's talk about the modules and libraries we're going to use in today's demo. And by the way, these logos are looking a bit funny, but I'll explain what they mean later. So the first module we're going to use is Pandas. And Pandas module isn't needed for web scraping, but since I'm going to be working with table data, I'm going to create a Pandas data frame. So that's why we're using the Pandas module. But you don't need it if you're just doing regular web scraping. So the module you'll need to use for web scraping is Beautiful Soup. And that's the main web scraping module. And we're also going to be using requests, which I've already used in a different video, link in the description. And request is just so that we can open up our URL so that we can work with it. And we're going to have a bunch of smaller modules, but they're not important enough to talk about, so yeah. And finally, let's see what we're going to do in today's program. So first of all, we're just going to do this in different steps, becoming harder and harder. So first, we're just going to get a website and then extract all of the HTML code from that website and then just print it out on the screen. And then after that, instead of getting the whole HTML, we're just going to select one element in the whole page and then get that HTML and show it in the terminal screen. And then instead of that HTML, like let's say it's the title, then instead of just showing the title tag and then the text and then another /title tag, it's going to show just the text and then print that out. And then finally, we'll just go all out and get table data from the web page, and then we're going to print it out neatly. Alright, so now that you know what web scraping is, let's take this to the next level and get into the demo. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go to Atom here so that we can actually do our program. So first, we're just going to import our modules. So let me say imports here. Okay, so first module I want is requests, like we talked about. And then I also want to import Beautiful Soup. So Beautiful Soup. But we want to import this from BS4 because that's just Beautiful Soup 4. That's what it's called. So from BS4, import Beautiful Soup. And then finally, since I said before, I'm just going to also be using a Pandas data frame. So I'll just go ahead and import that right now. Although we're not going to be using it for the first part. Okay, so I'm using a website called Market Watch, and that's just going to be for stocks. This is the pre-market screener for stocks. Here we go, marketwatch.com/tools/screener/pre-market. Although you can use any website you want for web scraping. So, as you can see here, we have all of this HTML content. But the first thing I want to do is I want to get this HTML content and then print it on the terminal screen. So I'm just going to use this URL. Since we're using web scraping, I want to use this URL and then get the HTML from that URL. So just so that we can make it simpler, I'm going to make a variable called URL, although you don't have to do this. So URL, and then in a string, I'm just going to put the URL there. I'm just going to paste it in. Although you can use this for any website you want. And then I'm going to create another variable called page. So page equals, and then I'm going to use our requests library right here. So I'm going to say requests.get and then our URL. So requests.get and then the URL. In this case, we already have a variable, so I'm just going to add it there. So this requests.get variable, this will just get the URL. And then after that, we want to parse this page for all of the HTML content, and then we can print that out. So here, I'm just adding these comments just so that it's neater. Okay, let's just add that. And then this is the program. Or no, this is the first part. Okay, there we go. First part. Okay. So, and then, like I said before, I want to parse this, and now we're going to use the actual web scraping library, Beautiful Soup. So I'm going to make a variable called soup so that I can use this for the rest of my program. So soup equals, and then we're going to use Beautiful Soup. So Beautiful Soup in this case is a function, and we're going to get this page variable, but we want to get the text from it since we want to parse it. And then the last argument we have to provide is what kind of parser you want to use. I'm going to use HTML parser, html.parser, but there's other parsers you can use like LXML, sorry. But I'm going to use HTML parser here. So now this soup variable that we created, we can use that whenever we want to refer to our web page. And then finally, let's just print it out. So I'm going to print our soup here. And actually, I forgot one last thing. Since we want to get the text out of this, like we want to get the HTML text, I'm going to say at the end here, .text. There we go. All right, so now that we're done with our program, let's actually run this. So here I'm going to go to terminal, and then first of all, actually, before we run our program, we have to pip install all our modules. So we would pip install requests if you haven't already, and then we would pip install BS4, not Beautiful Soup, just BS4. And then pandas, if you haven't already done that. But since I already did that, I'm going to just go straight away to running my program. So Python 3, and then webscraping.py. So webscraping.py. All right, and now it should print out a long line of HTML text, and there we go. So now all of this HTML is the same HTML as this, this website. So this is all of the HTML from this website. And yeah, so that worked. So this is we've printed out the full HTML of a website, but now instead of getting the full HTML code, I just want to get the HTML of, let's say, this title. I just want to say pre-market screener and then whatever tags are behind it. So how we can do that is by making another variable. So first of all, let me just take out this part. So let's copy this line and put it over here. Okay, so the second part. All right, so for the second part, I'm going to make another variable called, let's say, title. And this title will be equal to soup, and we're using our soup variable here. So soup.findAll, and then I want to use this findAll function so that I can find every tag in this HTML that uses this pre-market screener. So how I can do that is by going to the three dots here, based on whatever browser you want. On Chrome, it's just up here. So the three dots, and then more tools, and then developer tools. There's also a keyboard shortcut, but I don't normally use that. Then let's move this right over here. And then I want to click this button, like on the top left corner, so that I can select any element on the page and then inspect it. But you can also right click and then press inspect. So here, as you can see, it's just highlighting whatever element on the HTML page I do. So let's say I want to use this title. So I'll go here, And here we go. We have our span variable, and then we have our pre-market screener. That's how you know that it's the right element, because it showed the same text that we want. And there's also an H1 class, but that's bigger, so we're just going to use the smaller one. And what we want to use here, since this is a span tag, and then we want the class is called label. So let's go back to Atom, and we want to find all. Let's say we want to find all of the span tags. Then it'll get all of the span tags, and then it'll get the text, obviously, also. But there might be more than one span tags. So how I can get this exact one is by using the class. So I'm finding all of the span tags, but I want to get that exact one. So I can use class underscore. We have to have underscore, and then equals to, and then whatever the class is. In this case, it's title. Or no, it's label. Sorry, I forgot. This is the H1 class. Okay. So label. All right, so now that we have that, we can just print it out. So I'm going to print title, and then let's go back to terminal and run this. Or wait, let me just clear this first. Okay, so if we run this, then come on, let's run. Okay, there we go. So now it's giving me multiple span classes. And the reason why that's happening is because, again, there's multiple span tags, but they have the same class also. So instead of that, let's just use this H1 class here. So you could, if there's multiple of the same tags with the same class, then that's not going to work. So I'm just going to use this upper level, which is the H1 with the class of title. So let's go back to Atom, and here instead of span, let's use H1, and then the class will be title. So if it doesn't work, then you have to troubleshoot like this. So then let's go back to terminal, clear it, and then run it again. And then it should show, yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is all of the HTML text for just that element. So here we have our H1 class equals title, and then we have our span class is label, and then we have our pre-market screener. There we go. That worked. All right, so for the third part, I want to get the text from an HTML element. So let's just use this same H1 tag, but I want to get the text from this. So let me just, let's just comment out this part. Or you know what, let's just remove it. And let's copy this. And third part. And what I'm doing here, this formatting and comments, this is completely optional. I'm just doing it so that it looks nicer. All right, so for the third part, I'm going to use a for loop so that I can loop through our soup.findAll here. So let's say like for x in, and then we're going to copy this soup.findAll, blah, 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 blah. So we're just looping through our finding the element. So once that we have this loop, then I can just print it. So print x, but we want to print the text within x. So x is now just looping through all of the HTML in this element. So if we get the text from x, which is our variable for our loop, if we get the text from that, then it'll get our text from our website. Like for example, it'll get pre-market screener here. And this will work for any text, for any website, for any element. So let's save this. Oh no, what did I do? Okay, let's save this and then go to terminal and then run it. Okay, Python 3 web scraping. And now it should say pre-market screener. And there we go, that worked. And this will work for any element you use. And let's just move that back here. All right, so this will work for any element you use, but I just used the title. All right, so let's go back to Atom. Okay, so let's start the fourth part. So let me just make a bunch more space, and then let's do the comments. So here we go. Fourth part. Okay, so now what I want to do is, for the fourth part, I just want to get all of this table data, and then I'm going to put it in a Pandas data frame, like I said before, and then just print it on the terminal screen. So first, let me just move this over here. Okay. Okay, so first I'm going to get a variable with all of this table data. So as you can see, if I use this element finder, then we can see this table. So I'm just going to get the biggest div class, although there are other divs inside of that and then the table. But I'm just going to get this biggest one. And then just like the title up here, just like this title variable, we're going to make another one for table. So table equals and then soup.findAll, just like before, because we're finding an element. But this time it's not an h1 class. This time it's a div class. So the tag is called div, so I'm just going to type div there, and then the class underscore equals, and then this is the class. And the class is different for every element. It just depends on what kind of web page or website you're using. So now we have our table variable, but in order to make it more organized so that I can put it into the data frame, I'm going to loop through each row first, and then in each row, I'm going to loop through each cell so that I can get each cell individually. So I'm going to go here, and first of all, let me just show you something. So in the first cell of each row, there's a hyperlink, and then it goes to a different web page, but I don't want a hyperlink, so I'm just going to paste in this code. And basically what it does is it loops through each row, and then it just extracts the hyperlink and removes it. Okay, so now let's get back to the looping through. Okay, so let's just add more space. Okay, so now I want to loop through each row, and then inside of that I want to loop through each cell so that we can get each cell individually. So I'm going to make a for loop called tr, because that stands for table row, that's the tag name. So in, and then I want to get it from this table variable that we have. So table with an index of 0, and then dot find all. And then because this table variable, this is finding the div that's above the table. So we want to find all of the tr tags, because just to show you guys, let's just open this up. And then this, and then this, and then here we go. Inside of the table body, then we have all of these tr classes. And since there's multiple, I'm going to find all of the tr tags. So we're looping through that. So this is for each table row it finds. So for each row, it'll do this code. So now I'm going to initialize a variable called I for 1. So you can initialize this as whatever you want. But for each row, I want to make I equals to 0. So basically this I variable, I want it so that I can know which cell I'm on. So for each row, I will be 0 because in the tr loop, whenever it finds a new row, it's changing I to 0. So for example, if it's on this symbol column, then I will be 0, and then we can increment it for each column it goes. So for company name, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. So that's how we'll know which column we're on. And then now that we've looped through each row, let's loop through each cell. So for TD this time, because in each TR class we have a bunch of table datas. That's each cell. So for TD in, and then TR, because that's our loop name. So tr.findAll, and then we want to find all of the TD tags that are inside the TR tags. So since that's a loop, we need colon. Okay. So now, since I said before, I need to increment it by 1 based every cell it goes by. So how I can do that is by saying for each TD tag or each cell, it's going to increment I by 1. So I can just say I equals I plus 1 so that it increments by 1. And then finally, each cell in our table, it has a new line character just so that it formats nicely here, but we don't want that on our terminal screen. So I'm just going to use an if command so that I can just take it out. So now, before we do that, I'm going to create some variables. So here I'm going to make our column headers so that when we make our pandas data frame, we have to include some column headers. So I'm going to make those now. So let's make a variable called column headers. And then we can make that an array so that we can add all our column headers. All right, and we're adding these so that they look neat. So I'm just copying the column headers from this table from the website so that I can make it look neater. So I'm going to add symbol, and I'm not going to add company name because it's too long, so I'm just going to skip it. So symbol, price, volume, change, and then change in percent. So symbol, price, and then volume. Based on whatever table you have, you can add your own column headers. And then change in money, so I'm just going to put a $sign here. And then finally change in percent. There we go. And then we want to make our pandas data frame. Let's just add it now since we have the column headers. So I'm going to call this data frame. And then that will be equal to PD, which is our pandas module. Up here we imported it. So PD dot, and then data frame, because we're creating a new data frame. And then since we're going to add the column header, since we already have the column headers variable, I'm just going to add it here. So columns equals column headers. Okay, there we go. And then since I want to add all of the data from our table into, like, for example, a variable for each of these column headers, I'm going to initialize them as variables. So I'm just going to paste these in. So symbol, price, volume, and then change in money. So that's also going to be an empty string. And then change in percent. And then that I'm going to initialize it as 0 because I want to add it as an integer. Okay, so like I said before, there's a new line character in our table, but I want to take that out. So how I can do that, let me just paste in the code, and then I'll explain it, obviously. Okay, so I have a bunch of if commands. So like I said before, if I is 1, then we'll be talking about symbol. If I is 2, since we're skipping company name. If I is 3, then we would be referring to the price column. If I is 4, then we would be referring to volume. If price is 5, change in dollars. If price is 6, then change in percent. So we can make use of this I variable. So if I was 1, then we'd be talking about symbol. So I want to replace our new line character with nothing because I just want to remove it. And then if I is 3, we would be talking about the price. So again, we're just going to replace the new line character with nothing. And then if I is 4, same thing, if I is 5. And then it's a little bit different for if I is 6. So let's just add if I is equal to 6. Then what we want to do is we want to take our change percent variable. And by the way, symbol, price, volume, change, and change percent, these are the same variables that we have up here that we just initialized. So that's what we're referring to. And we're also going to add the data into these variables so that we can use that in the data frame. So change percent equals, and then since this is a decimal value, I'm going to add it as a float. I'm going to put it into a float function. So that's just one of Python's regular functions. And then I'm going to say td, which is our table data or the cell, dot text dot replace. And this is just how we replaced all of the other things. And then again, I'm going to just do the same thing, the new line character with nothing. But this time I'm also going to say dot replace again so that we can replace another thing. So here we have a percent sign after every change in percent because it's a percent. But I want, since we're putting this into a float function, I want it to just be a decimal value. So I'm going to replace the percent, not and, percent with nothing because I just want to remove it. And there we go. Okay, so after that, I'm going to make another if command, but not on the same level as this. It should be behind one. There we go. So in our table in our website, there's a few extra like blank lines just so that it formats nicely in the website, but we don't want that kind of data in our data frame. We just want the actual stocks and the stock data. So I'm just going to ignore those rows where it's not actual stock data, it's just blank lines. So we're going to use the symbol variable, which is our variable up here. So if symbol is not equal to nothing, which basically just means if it has a value, then we would want to add all of this data to our pandas data frame. And if it doesn't have any value, then we should just not add it. So I'm going to use our data frame variable, which is our pandas data frame. So data frame equals, and then data frame dot append, and then I want to append all of our symbol, price, volume, change, and change percent, because now they have the data from the website. So here I'm going to say pd.series, and then here square brackets. There we go. Okay, so I want to add all of our variables: symbol, price, volume, change percent, all of that. So symbol, price, volume, change, then change percent. Okay, there we go. And then finally, here we go. Here, let's just put a comma there. And then let's just make a variable called index equals our column headers, because we want to add those as the column headers. And then I'm also going to make another variable called ignore index equals, oh wait, we need, okay, this should be here. Okay, so ignore index equals true. And this needs to have a comma, because we're not using indexing just yet, so I'm just going to say we're going to ignore the index. And then let's just put that parentheses here. And then the last part I'm just going to paste in, so let's just put that at the end. Okay, so I'm just going to sort all of the values from our percent of change, from our change percent. So we're just sorting all of the values from our change percent. And then, yeah, that's all there is for the fourth part. But now that we have our data frame, we have all of the data in our data frame, but I want to print it out just so that we can see it and test it out. So I'm going to say print, and then data frame, which is our pandas data frame. And there we go. So I'll save it. Oh no. Okay, there we go. Save that. And then, yeah, let's just run this in terminal now. So I'm just going to go to terminal, and actually, wait, one last thing. So this data frame dot sort values, we're just sorting all of the percentages so that it's like highest to lowest, or lowest to highest. So that's what the sort values does. So let's go to terminal here and then clear that so that you can see. Okay, so now I'm just going to run our Python code again. So Python 3 and then web scraping.py. And then now it should show all of the data from our website. So let's just see this. So this is the data. Let's go back to terminal, and there we go. Okay, so we have all of our column headers: symbol, price, volume, change in money, and then change in percent. And then we have all of the exact same data as in Google Chrome. There we go. That worked. So we can scrape any web page and extract data out of it. We can also use it along with any other data we may have. And we can also use this type of thing for automating or testing and other purposes. So this kind of video, this could just be a beginning of many other videos related to stocks, AI stock trading, bots, stuff like that. So let me know if you're interested to see more videos on this kind of topic. Thanks very much for watching. If y'all had any doubts, please comment down below. I would love to help you out if you're stuck with any web scraping questions or issues. Please like, subscribe, all that jazz. Until then, you can learn anything.